I never questioned Claire when she said she needed something for herself. Life had gotten predictable: work, bills, keeping the house in order. I figured if a few yoga classes helped her unwind, who was I to argue? She started about 3 months ago. At first, it was just twice a week, nothing major. Then it became 3 times. Then 4. Then, suddenly, she was going every day, and sometimes even on weekends for private sessions. "Jason, you wouldn't believe how amazing yoga is," she gushed one evening, stretching her arms above her head as she leaned against the kitchen counter. "I feel so alive again." I smiled, taking a sip of my beer. "That's great, babe. Maybe I should try a class with you sometime." Her reaction was immediate, too immediate. She laughed, but there was something tight about it. "Oh, Jason, you'd hate it. The slow, a lot of breathing and, mindfulness. You'd get bored in 5 minutes." I chuckled. Fair enough. I should have known. A few weeks in, I started noticing small changes. Claire was dressing differently: tighter leggings, crop tops that showed just a bit more skin than before. She spent more time getting ready, her hair always perfectly in place, her lips glistening with gloss. And then there was the scent. A subtle, spicy cologne started clinging to her clothes. Not mine. Not any of her perfumes. Just something different. "You smell nice," I commented once, pulling her in for a hug as she came home. She stiffened slightly, then laughed. "Oh, it's just the essential oils from class. We do a lot of aromatherapy." Right. Aromatherapy. Work had been kicking my butt lately, so I hadn't really had time to dwell on Claire's newfound obsession. But then came the missed dinners, the late-night yoga meetups, and the occasional out-of-town weekend retreats. And every time I asked, she had an answer. "Lisa and I went for smoothies after class. I stayed late to help clean up the studio." "Oh, that retreat? Last-minute opportunity." The instructor, Devin, thought I'd benefit from it. Devin. That name started coming up a lot. Devin thinks I should try hot yoga. Devin says I have a natural flexibility. Devin is amazing. He really understands the body. I did what any trusting husband would do. I ignored it. One evening, I got home early and found Claire in the bedroom, standing in front of the mirror in her underwear. She had just come back from yoga and was adjusting the strap of her sports bra when I noticed something. A faint mark just below her collarbone. I frowned. "What's that?" She glanced down, her eyes widening for half a second before she recovered. "Oh, must be from my mat. We did a lot of chest stretches today." "Uh-huh," I murmured. A mat left a mark on her collarbone. That was the first real warning sign, the one I should have paid attention to. But I was still in denial. I was still trying to believe my wife wasn't the kind of woman who would betray me. But that belief wouldn't last much longer, because soon Devin was going to slip up. And when he did, my entire world would explode. Claire had always been good at covering her tracks. At least that's what I thought. The missed dinners turned into full nights where she claimed she had late sessions, private lessons, or some kind of special yoga event. She always had an excuse ready, rehearsed but casual, like she had practiced them in her head before saying them out loud. I should have questioned it sooner, but I kept brushing it off. Work had been draining me, and I convinced myself she was just going through a phase. Then the condom appeared. It was a Saturday morning, and I had just rolled out of bed, still groggy, when I noticed it. Right there on the floor, half tucked under the dresser, a shiny little wrapper. Gold. I stared at it for a long second, my mind playing catch-up. Claire and I hadn't used protection in years. There was no reason for this to be in our bedroom. I bent down, picked it up, and turned it over in my fingers. Unopened, but that didn't matter. The fact that it was here meant someone had it in my house. In my bedroom. "Claire," I called out, my voice eerily calm. She was in the bathroom, brushing her hair. She walked out, fresh-faced, in one of those tight yoga outfits she had practically lived in for the past few months. "Yeah." I held up the condom. Her reaction told me everything. First, the briefest flicker of shock in her eyes, like she hadn't expected me to find it. Then, almost instantly, she smoothed her expression over with something resembling annoyance. "What the hell is that?" she asked, crossing her arms. I was hoping you could tell me, I replied, keeping my voice even. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. Oh, for God's sake, Jason. Are we really doing this? It's probably old. From years ago. You're acting ridiculous. I let out a slow breath, holding back the immediate rage bubbling under my skin. Years ago? In our bedroom? Claire, we haven't used these since before we were married. Well, maybe it got stuck somewhere and just now fell out. She shot back, snatching it from my hand and tossing it into the trash like it was some meaningless piece of lint. I don't know, but I don't have time for this. And just like that, she turned on her heel and walked back into the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, staring at the closed door, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. She didn't even try to give me a real explanation. No panic, no scrambling for a decent lie, just straight-up dismissal. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Up until now, I had been giving her the benefit of the doubt, convincing myself that maybe I was imagining things, that maybe she really was just obsessed with yoga. But this was a mistake. A careless, stupid mistake. And the way she handled it, like I was the problem for even asking, she wasn't even afraid of getting caught. I didn't say another word. I just grabbed my keys and left the house, needing to breathe, needing space before I did something I'd regret. As I drove, my mind raced through every moment from the past few months. The late nights, the mysterious cologne, the way she had started treating me like an afterthought. I had ignored it all, but now it was like every warning sign was flashing in front of me in neon. And there was one common thread running through everything. Devin. Claire had never mentioned other instructors at her yoga studio. It was always Devin this, Devin that. She talked about him like he was some kind of enlightened guru, someone who had transformed her life. And now, I had a sinking feeling that he was transforming a whole lot more than just her yoga poses. I pulled into the parking lot of the yoga studio, gripping the steering wheel as I stared at the glass doors. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a forgotten condom anymore. It was about to get messy. I sat in my car outside the yoga studio, watching through the large windows as a group of women stretched and moved through their poses in synchronized waves. The place looked exactly as I imagined. Soft lighting, calming colors, floor-to-ceiling mirrors reflecting the illusion of peace. And there he was, Devin. Tall, lean, with that effortless confidence that men like him always seemed to have. He moved between the women, adjusting their stances, hands skimming backs and hips in ways that looked a little too familiar. He smiled at them, whispered something in their ears that made them giggle like schoolgirls. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I had two choices. I could storm in there right now, make a scene, demand answers. But something told me Claire would just brush me off again, call me paranoid, twist things until I was the unreasonable one. No, I needed proof. So I left. But I wasn't done. That night, Claire came home later than usual, practically glowing. She hummed to herself in the kitchen, making tea, her body still covered in that stupid tight yoga outfit. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. How was class? She didn't even look up. Good. Yeah? Did Devin give you any special lessons today? Her hand froze on the mug for just a second before she continued stirring. Jason, seriously? You're still on this? She sighed, shaking her head. Devin is my instructor. That's it. I let out a dry chuckle. Right? And I suppose the condom in our bedroom was his spiritual energy too. She turned then, eyes flashing with something I couldn't quite place. Oh my God, Jason. If you don't trust me, just say it. Stop acting like some jealous, insecure husband. It's embarrassing. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You don't even care that I found it, do you? You didn't try to explain, you didn't even pretend to be shocked. That's what's really bothering me, Claire. Not just the condom, you. She rolled her eyes. I don't care? Jason, I work, I take care of myself, I have a life outside of you. Not everything is about you. That hit a nerve. I exhaled, shaking my head. You know what? You're right. Not everything is about me. So why don't you tell me, what is this about? Because it's sure as hell not about yoga. Silence. She held my gaze for a long moment, her lips pressing into a thin line, like she was considering whether or not I was even worth the effort of lying. Then, with a small smirk, one that sent ice down my spine, she simply shrugged. You wouldn't understand. And then she walked away, heading upstairs like the conversation was over. But it wasn't. Not by a long shot. The next day, I took a different approach. If Claire wasn't going to give me answers, I was going to find them myself. So I hired someone. Private investigator. A guy named Ron, recommended by a friend who had gone through something similar. He didn't ask too many questions. Just took down the details and assured me he'd get me the truth. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what he found. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Ron, you were right. She's not just taking yoga lessons. Meet me tonight. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting into knots. I had spent weeks ignoring the signs, months convincing myself Claire wouldn't do this to me. But I knew. And now I was about to find out just how bad it really was. I met Ron at a bar on the other side of town, a place dark enough that no one would recognize me. He was already seated at a booth, nursing a whiskey, a manila folder sitting on the table like a loaded gun. You're not gonna like this, he said as I slid into the seat across from him. I exhaled sharply. Just tell me. He pushed the folder toward me, and I hesitated for half a second before flipping it open. Photos. Claire. Devin. Together. One picture showed them in the parking lot behind the yoga studio, standing too close, her hand resting on his chest like it belonged there. Another one, inside a dimly lit restaurant. Claire leaning in, laughing, eyes locked on his like they were the only two people in the world. But the one that made my blood run cold, the one that sent a sharp pain straight through my gut, was the last one. A hotel. Claire walking inside. Devin following a minute later. Timestamp. 2 nights ago. The same night she had come home glowing. Ron watched me closely, waiting for my reaction. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced myself to stay calm. You got more. My voice was tight, barely controlled. Ron nodded. She's been meeting him outside the studio a lot. Lunches. Drinks. That hotel? Not the first time. He took a sip of his drink before adding. And she's not the only married woman he's been fooling around with. That caught my attention. What do you mean? Ron leaned back, crossing his arms. Devin's got a habit. Your wife's just one of many. He's been screwing half the married women in that damn yoga class. I've got proof on at least 3 others. And get this, one of the husbands already suspected. He's been trying to gather enough dirt to blow this whole thing open. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Jesus Christ. It wasn't just an affair. It was a goddamn pattern. And Claire? She had just been another name on his list. Something inside me snapped. The humiliation, the betrayal, the sheer audacity of it all. I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to expose him. I barely remember the drive home. My hands gripped the wheel so tight they ached. My mind replaying the images over and over. Claire with him, laughing, touching, kissing, lying. She was already home when I walked in, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a damn care in the world. She glanced up. Hey, that was it. Hey, like she hadn't spent the last few months making a complete fool out of me. I pulled the condom wrapper from my pocket, the one she had so carelessly thrown in the trash, and tossed it onto the coffee table in front of her. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. Jason, she sighed, already sounding exasperated. Are we seriously still on this? Oh, we're past this, I said, my voice low, dangerous. Tell me, Claire, was the hotel room nice? Did Devin make you feel alive? That got her attention. She sat up straighter, her expression hardening. Excuse me? I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. Don't act surprised. I know, Claire. I know everything. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Annoyance. She actually had the nerve to look annoyed. You hired someone to follow me? She asked, shaking her head like I was the one who had crossed a line. Wow, that's pathetic, Jason. I slammed my hands on the table, making her jump. Pathetic? You're screwing your yoga instructor in cheap hotel rooms. Claire. That's pathetic. She rolled her eyes, taking another sip of wine like we were discussing the weather. Oh, grow up, Jason.
Ist daher, stumped?
That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? She snapped. That I'm sorry? That I regret it? Because I don't. Not even a little. She set her glass down and leaned forward, her voice dripping with venom. You haven't seen me in years. You go through the motions, but you don't actually see me. Devin does. He listens. He pays attention. And guess what? I like it. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. So this is my fault? You cheated. But somehow I'm the bad guy. She let out a sharp laugh. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just sex, Jason. You act like I murdered someone. Something about the way she said it, the sheer indifference, made something in me go cold. This wasn't just an affair. She had zero respect for me. And I was done. I grabbed the folder from my bag and tossed it at her. She frowned, picking it up and flipping through the photos. I watched as her smirk slowly faded. Because this wasn't just about her and Devin. This was about Devin and all the other women. You thought you were special, didn't you? I said, my voice eerily calm. You really thought he cared about you. Her face paled. What? I leaned in, watching the realization hit her. He's been screwing multiple married women. At the same time, including some of your friends. You're not his great love story, Claire. You're a goddamn cliché. She slammed the folder shut, her breathing uneven. You're lying. I smirked. Am I? She stared at the photos, her fingers trembling slightly. For the first time, I saw the cracks, the doubt, the fear. Here's the best part, I continued. One of the other husbands? He's been waiting for the right moment to take Devin down. And now, thanks to you, I tapped the folder. I think we just found it. Claire swallowed hard, her bravado slipping. For the first time, she was the one losing control. And I wasn't done yet, because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about burning everything to the ground. Claire didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. That had to be a record. She just sat there, clutching the folder like it contained the meaning of life, her breathing uneven, her fingers twitching against the glossy photos of her soulmate playing house with half the married women in town. I gave her time to process, let her little fantasy world crumble in real time. But I wasn't about to let her off that easy. You really thought you were different, huh? I said, pouring myself a drink. Thought you were special? That Devin actually gave a damn. She blinked, her face pale. Shut up, Jason. I laughed. Oh, now you want me to shut up? You didn't care how I felt when you were sneaking around, lying to my face, humiliating me in my own damn house. But now that your feelings are a little hurt, now it's too much. She slammed the folder onto the table, standing abruptly. You don't get it. I get it, Claire. I interrupted, my voice sharper now. I get that you're a walking cliché. I get that you threw away your marriage for a guy who treats women like a damn hobby. I get that you've been playing me for a fool for months. But what you don't get... I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You don't get that I'm about to ruin every single person involved in this. Her breath hitched, and for the first time in all of this, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. And that was satisfying as hell. She swallowed hard. Jason. I tilted my head. What's wrong? You don't like how this feels? You don't like feeling used? I scoffed, shaking my head. Guess what, Claire? That's exactly how I felt when you looked me in the eyes and lied to me. Over and over again. She collapsed onto the couch, pressing her hands to her temples. Jesus Christ. I smirked. Nope, just your husband. You remember him, right? Silence. I downed the rest of my drink, setting the glass down with a sharp clink. Now, let's talk about how this is going to go. She looked up, wary. What do you mean? I sat down across from her, leaning forward. I mean that Devin's fun little house of cards is about to come crashing down. And you have two choices. She exhaled shakily, arms crossed. What choices? I held up a finger. Option 1. You can stay quiet, Let me handle this my way, and when all this blows up, you at least get to walk away with some dignity." She scoffed, shaking her head. "And what's option 2? I leaned in, my voice cold. "You try to protect him, and I make damn sure your entire world burns down with his." Her jaw clenched. "You wouldn't." I smiled. "Try me." Claire had always been arrogant. Always thought she was the smartest person in the room. But right now, she looked completely, utterly lost. And I wasn't even finished yet. The next morning, I made a call. "Ron," I said as he picked up, "let's blow this wide open." "Thought you'd never say it," he chuckled. "How public we talking?" I smirked. "Very." Started small. A few anonymous emails sent to a handful of husbands. Then one to the owner of the yoga studio. Another to a local journalist who loved a good suburban scandal. And then the bombshell, one final message. To Devin himself. "Hey Devin, time's up." By noon, the storm had started. I was at work when my phone started buzzing nonstop. "Claire." I ignored it. Then, a text from my buddy Ryan. "Dude, you seeing this? Devin is screwed." I checked Facebook. The local community page was exploding. "Looks like someone's been busy. Multiple married women in this town apparently have private yoga sessions with our local instructor. Wonder how their husbands feel about it. Devin is trash. My sister's husband got an anonymous email this morning with pictures. So that's why the yoga classes were always booked solid. Y'all are wild." It was a mess. A full-blown nightmare for Devin. And I was enjoying every damn second of it. By the time I got home, Claire was waiting. She was pacing the living room, phone clutched in her hand, looking like she had just barely stopped herself from throwing it at the wall. She whipped around the second I walked in. "What did you do?" I shrugged, setting my bag down. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Her face twisted in fury. "Don't play dumb, Jason. Devin's been fired. His entire life is falling apart." I smirked. "Good. You..." She let out a frustrated noise, running her hands through her hair. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I cocked an eyebrow. "Yeah. I made sure that lying, manipulative piece of trash got exactly what he deserved. Just like you will." Her eyes widened slightly. "Me?" I crossed my arms. "Oh, did you think I was done? That this was just about him?" I chuckled darkly. "Claire, I haven't even started with you yet." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in months, she had nothing to say. And that was the best part of all. Claire didn't sleep that night. I know because I didn't either. She spent the first few hours pacing the bedroom, gripping her phone so tightly I thought she might crack the screen. She kept checking it, waiting, hoping for a message from Devin that would somehow fix this mess. But no message came, because Devin was done. By morning, the fallout had fully detonated. The yoga studio issued a public statement announcing Devin's immediate termination due to gross misconduct and multiple ethical violations. Half the married women in town were now trapped in an absolute disaster, denying, lying, begging their husbands not to leave them. And Claire? She had finally shut up. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone while sipping my coffee. The internet was on fire. So Devin's been fired. He should probably leave town before someone's husband turns him into a missing person. Not gonna lie, I thought yoga was just stretching. Didn't know it came with a free homewrecker membership. If your wife has been acting enlightened lately, you might want to check her yoga schedule, bro. I couldn't stop smirking. It was perfect. Claire finally came downstairs, looking like absolute hell. She hadn't showered, hadn't put on makeup. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her usual perfect hair was a frizzy mess. I loved it. She stopped in the doorway, arms crossed, and just stared at me. I looked up. "Morning." She didn't respond, just pulled out a chair and sat across from me, her fingers drumming anxiously against the table. "I assume you've seen the news," I said, setting my phone down. Her nostrils flared. "You think this is funny?" I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee. "Oh, I think it's hilarious." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Jesus Christ, Jason. I tilted my head. Problem, Claire? Her jaw tightened. You ruined his life. I blinked. I ruined his life? Oh, sweetheart. I leaned forward, voice dripping with mock concern. You think I did this? No, no, no. You did this. Devin did this. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. She glared at me, but there was something else in her expression now. Desperation. You don't understand, she muttered. You, Jason, you don't get what Devin and I had. I let out a bark of laughter. Oh, I get it. You had a fantasy. A sweaty, stretchy little fantasy where you convinced yourself this was some deep, meaningful connection. And now you realize you were just another name on his list. Her face crumpled for a split second before she caught herself. Good. She deserved to hurt. She inhaled deeply, trying to regain control. Fine. You've had your little revenge. Now what? I leaned back, swirling the last bit of coffee in my cup. Now, I move on. She frowned. Move on? What the hell does that mean? I smiled. It means I'm divorcing you, Claire. The color drained from her face. What? I stood, taking my mug to the sink. You heard me. I already contacted a lawyer. She shot up from her chair. Jason, wait. I turned to face her, watching her scramble for the right words. She swallowed hard. We can fix this. I laughed, shaking my head. Oh, now you want to fix it? After months of lying to me? After looking me in the eyes and telling me it was nothing? After throwing away everything we built? Her lip quivered, but I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Tell me, Claire, if I hadn't found the condom, would you have ever told me? Silence. Her eyes darted away, lips pressing into a thin line. And there it was, the final nail in the coffin. I let out a slow, satisfied exhale. Yeah, that's what I thought. I grabbed my keys off the counter and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, voice unsteady. I turned, giving her one last look. To meet with my lawyer. And then I walked out. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Claire called me 15 times that day. I didn't pick up. By the time I got home, she was waiting. Not in her usual smug, dismissive way. No, this was different. She was sitting on the couch, hands clasped so tightly together they were turning white. Her eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. I didn't feel bad. I closed the door behind me and tossed my keys onto the counter. Whatever you have to say, Claire, don't bother. She flinched like I had struck her. Jason, please. I let out a humorless chuckle. Oh, now it's please? Where was that when you were sneaking around behind my back? When you were laughing at me with him? She inhaled sharply. It wasn't like that. I scoffed. No? Then tell me. How was it? Explain it to me, Claire. Help me understand why the woman I trusted with everything threw it all away for some yoga bro who couldn't even keep his damn pants on for a week at a time. Her eyes welled up with fresh tears. She hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know, Jason. I don't know. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, that's rich. She stood suddenly, eyes wild. You think I planned this? You think I wanted this to happen? Yes, I said, my voice hard. You did want it, Claire. You didn't just fall into an affair. You made a choice. Every damn time you lied to me, every time you snuck around, every time you let him touch you. You chose this. She looked away, swallowing thickly. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Just tell me the truth now, Claire. Were you ever going to stop? Or was I just supposed to keep playing the fool while you got your little thrills on the side? She hesitated, and that hesitation was everything. I nodded, the last shred of hope inside me finally disintegrating. That's what I thought. Silence hung between us, suffocating and absolute. Then she whispered, I don't want a divorce. I let out a sharp, humorless breath. Well, that's too damn bad. Because I do. She took a shaky step forward. Jason, please, let's just talk. Talk. I let out a bitter chuckle. Oh, now you want to talk? Where was all this energy when I was begging you to let me in? When I was sitting at home alone, wondering why my wife suddenly didn't want me anymore. She wiped at her eyes furiously. I was lost, Jason. I was unhappy. Then you should have left, I snapped. If you were so damn unhappy, you should have had the decency to walk away instead of turning me into some pathetic joke. She shook her head violently.
No.
I love you, Jason. I never stopped. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, I walked up to her, leaning in just enough that she could see the cold in my eyes.
No, Claire.
You don't love me, I said quietly. You loved the comfort. You loved the security. But me, you tossed me aside the second something new and exciting came along. That's not love. Her breath hitched. I can fix this. I swear, I can fix this. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. You can't fix anything. You already broke it beyond repair. Her face crumpled, her hands reaching for me like she could somehow undo months of betrayal with one desperate touch. Jason! I stepped back. Don't. Silence. Finally, she let her arms drop to her sides, defeated. I nodded toward the stairs. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, I'll be moving my stuff out. She swallowed. And then, I met her eyes, my voice steady. And then I'm filing for divorce. Her breath shuddered. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, broken and alone. Exactly the way she had left me. Claire didn't fight the divorce. Oh, she tried at first, cried, begged, threw out every excuse in the book. She swore she'd been lost, that she didn't know why she did it, that Devin had manipulated her. I didn't buy a damn word. She didn't look so lost sneaking around with him in hotel rooms. She didn't seem manipulated when she dismissed me, rolled her eyes at me, acted like I was the problem. She had made her choices, and now, she had to live with them. I moved out within the week. Packing my things wasn't even painful, it was relieving. I threw everything into boxes, leaving behind only the weight of betrayal. She stood in the doorway as I carried out the last one, arms wrapped around herself, face streaked with tears. Jason! I didn't stop, didn't even look at her. I just walked past, got into my car, and drove away. She had already lost me. Now I was making it official. The fallout was glorious. Devin? Oh, he got wrecked. The yoga studio fired him, of course. Then the lawsuits started rolling in. Angry husbands suing for emotional distress, some even pressing charges for predatory behavior. Turns out, a few of the women he messed with hadn't been so willing after all. Rumor had it, one of the husbands tracked him down and left him with a busted lip and a broken nose. He tried packing up and skipping town, but news travels fast. Every new studio he applied to, they already knew. His name was ruined. And Claire? Well, Claire got to see exactly what she had thrown away. The first few months after the divorce were strange. Being alone again felt unfamiliar. I had spent years as a husband, as someone's other half, only to wake up one day and realize I was just me. But over time, it became liberating. No more walking on eggshells. No more doubting myself. No more waiting for someone to love me the way I deserved. I started hitting the gym again, reconnected with old friends, focused on me for the first time in years. And then, one evening, Claire texted me. Do you ever think about what we had? I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling absolutely nothing. Then I deleted it, because the truth was, Claire had been my past. And I was finally free to embrace my future.